Well, I'm going to say overall in this episode, things are actually looking alright. However, I think it might be a little too late. Hence why the light is blue, because that's how I'm feeling about our playoff chances. Anyway, you know what I mean, as it's time for another episode of... Hi there, it's Brett Hornby here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and welcome back to another episode of my Calgary Flames in 6. Season 3, episode number 9, as we'll look at, to keep up with the schedule, this is games 43 to 48. I'll put that loosely because things have moved around, and we'll look ahead. We'll find out where those makeup games are going to be. But it's just a matter of me trying to just keep on the schedule. Because actually at this point, the Calgary Flames only have got 44 games in the books. But we're still committed to having a 56-game season. And it's just a matter of me trying to keep this thing on my upload schedule. If you want something that's messed up, you should see my Calgary Hitmen in 6, where I recap Calgary Hitmen games. However, this is talking about our main hockey team, the Calgary Flames, and we'll take a look at the last, I guess it'll only be 5 games, because there was one game that got rescheduled because of the Vancouver Canucks being hit with COVID, but eventually we'll get 56 games in. So I'll bring up my notes and let's take a look at how the last, I guess you could say, 5 games went, but I'm still calling this my Calgary Flames in 6. Just to keep everything on my upload schedule. So let's get going. So game 43, as I'll put it in the slot for the purposes of the schedule, it's going back on Saturday, April the 10th. Well, originally the Calgary Flames, we were scheduled to play the Vancouver Canucks at home that day. However, because of their COVID outbreak, we wound up playing the Edmonton Oilers, as this game got rescheduled from Friday, May the 7th, till Saturday, April the 10th, as I mentioned with the Vancouver Canucks. And I'm going to say in this game, the Edmonton Oilers definitely looked a little gassed, as they were on their 4th game that week. And also they went to a service with Colby Cave, the fallen teammate who died. I believe he had some kind of blood clot in his brain, if I understand from last year. And there was something up in the brain that unfortunately killed him, that they had to eventually attend his service as a team. So the Edmonton Oilers definitely didn't have their A game in this game, and the Calgary Flames definitely took advantage of that. The first period, there was actually no scoring report, not even any penalties. You definitely know it's going down the stretch drive, going into the playoffs, when there isn't actually much penalties called until we get in the first round of playoffs, and then this penalties barrage. That always happens in the NHL. But not even any penalties for a Calgary-Edmonton game. Very, very unusual. Second period, the Calgary Flames had a big period to really put this one away, as the Edmonton Oilers definitely looked very gassed in this game, and this game suddenly being rescheduled. First, it was Sean Monahan who opened up the scoring just past the 30-minute mark. That was his 8th of the season at that point. So as Calgary strikes first. And then later in the period, it was Johnny Gaudreau who got his 14th. Past the 10.5-minute mark to make it 2-0 for Calgary. Then Elias Lindholm, who suddenly picked it up in this episode, scores his 10th just before the 13.5-minute mark to make it a 3-0 game for Calgary. Then lastly, it was Mark Giordano who scored his 7th of the season with 35 seconds left to go in the second period. So Calgary takes a 4-0 lead after the second period. Then in the third period, the Edmonton Oilers definitely were clearly gassed, as the Calgary Flames outshot the Edmonton Oilers 12-3 in the third period alone. Calgary did actually add another goal, as was Brett Ritchie, player that we signed on the professional tryout, got his second at the 13.5-minute mark. So Calgary took a 5-0 lead at this point, and ultimately they won this game 5-0 to end their 4-game losing streak, as Calgary definitely lost 4 straight going in this one. As I say, Calgary won this one 5-0. Calgary outshot the Edmonton Oilers 32-17 in this one. Calgary was led by Mark Giordano, who had a goal and assist, and then was Michael Backlund and Sam Bennett, who each chipped in with 2 assists. Let's also note that this happened to be Sam Bennett's last game as a Calgary Flame, as I made a separate video talking about what the Calgary Flames did at the NHL trade deadline. Well, Sam Bennett got shipped off to Florida after this game, so this was the last game for Sam Bennett. So when it comes to the goaltending story, well, Jacob Markstrom really needed to make 17 saves in the shutout for his 3rd of the season, while it's Mike Smith who made 27 saves for the Edmonton Oilers. So that was game 43 in terms of the purposes of this video. So game 44, this happened on Tuesday, April the 13th, as the Calgary Flames started off their 3-game road trip. I would say this was a fairly successful road trip, all things considered. First game was a 5:30 puck drop at the Scotiabank Arena, and this was also the first game after the trade deadline. And interestingly, David Rittich also happened to get traded in the NHL trade deadline. He got traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and with the Calgary Flames going to Toronto anyway, actually David Rittich, he actually joined the Calgary Flames on the flight to Toronto before he joined the Toronto Maple Leafs. There was no word if Sam Bennett also joined them as well. Maybe he connected to Toronto to connect to Florida. I don't know, I'll just throw that out there, but there was word that David Rittich actually joined the Calgary Flames on the flight to get to Toronto before he joined Toronto. And he actually wound up starting in this game. And the other interesting thing to note in this game is Milan Lucic, who actually played his 1,000 NHL game. So congratulations to Milan Lucic. I'd say that's actually pretty good, considering the kind of game that he plays, that he's lasted that long, playing over 1,000 games. So now let's get on to the game after all the sidebars. As first there was Calgary, who actually strikes first, as it was Yusuf Valimaki who scores his 2nd of the season just past the 4.5-minute mark. So Calgary had a 1-0 lead early in the first period. However, just past the 10.5-minute mark, it was Zach Hyndman who scored his 15th of the season for Toronto. That ties things up at 1-1. And then Milan Lucic, you know what he did to celebrate his 1,000th game in the NHL? Well, after that face-off, after that goal, he fought with Scott Sabourin of Toronto. So Milan Lucic had a fight in this one. There was nothing else to report after the first period, so it was 1-1. Going into the second period, it was early in the second period. Mitch Marner actually took a penalty 27 seconds in, and then it was on that said power play. Elias Lindholm actually scores his 11th to put Calgary up 2-1 at the 34-second mark of the second period. There was actually nothing much else to report for both sides, as I felt both sides played a little tentatively, just like the first 2 periods. So Calgary takes a 2-1 lead after the second period. Then in the third period, things did open up a bit for both sides, but Calgary still maintained a 2-1 lead at that point. Then it was Alexander Kerfoot who scores his 7th of the season for Toronto at the 6:17-minute mark to tie up the game at 2-2. Calgary did take a double minor penalty just past the 10-minute mark, but was able to kill off the Rasmus Andersson penalty as he took one on Joe Thornton. There was nothing else to report, so as I like to say, this one needs overtime. In overtime, maybe Johnny Gaudreau knew how to deke and undress one on David Rittich, as now David Rittich is the Toronto Maple Leafs goalie, as Johnny Gaudreau scores his 15th of the goal 36 seconds into the overtime on a very beautiful highlight reel goal. So Calgary ultimately takes this one 3-2. I say it was a highlight goal, and maybe this was done in practice many times, but now David Rittich is now playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Calgary did outshoot Toronto 28-26 overall, including each side having a shot in overtime. Calgary was led by Johnny Gaudreau and Elias Lindholm, who each had a goal and assist. Toronto was led by Zach Hyndman, who had a goal and assist, and John Tavares chipped in with 2 assists. So was Jacob Markstrom, who made 24 saves for Calgary, while David Rittich, he made 25 saves for Toronto in his Maple Leafs debut. So that was game 44. So game 45, this happened the next night on Wednesday, April the 14th, as the Calgary Flames have back-to-back against the Montreal Canadiens, and that's definitely one team that the Calgary Flames would be homing in on if they do still plan to make the playoffs. So in playoff hopes, but it's still mathematically possible. This was a 5 p.m. puck drop at the Bell Center. First period, the Calgary Flames kept their strong play recently, and they've matched up well against the Montreal Canadiens this season. And Calgary opens up the scoring just before the 4-minute mark as Noah Hannafin, who scores his 4th of the season, and Calgary takes an early 1-0 lead. There was actually no much anything else to report, so Calgary takes a 1-0 lead after the first period. Now to get closer, now he knows it's getting close to the playoff time as both sides are playing more cautious, especially if the Calgary Flames are trying to track down the Montreal Canadiens. Second period, the Calgary Flames did strike very early as Mark Giordano got his 8th of the season. Just 29 seconds into the second period, and now Calgary takes a 2-0 lead at that point in the second period. However, Montreal did get one back. That was former Flame, Brett Kulak, who actually got his 1st of the season just before the 11-minute mark. So now Calgary is up 2-1 at this point in the second period. Another tight one played as Calgary takes a 2-1 lead after the second period. Third period, the tight game continues for both sides, and Calgary maintained a 2-1 lead for most of the period. Calgary did eventually pull ahead, as it was Josh Levo who got his 5th at 12:49 of the third period, and Calgary takes a 3-1 lead at that point. Then any hope that the Montreal Canadiens had was dashed as Sean Monahan scores his 9th of the season just before the final minute to put Calgary up 4-1, and Calgary takes this one 4-1 to keep their 3rd straight win and improve their slim playoff hopes. Calgary outshot Montreal 34-27 overall. Calgary was led by Mark Giordano with a goal and assist, and Chris Tanev actually chipped in with 2 assists. Jacob Markstrom, he made 26 saves for Calgary, while Jake Allen, who made 30 saves for Montreal. So that was game 45 in terms of just slotting this in for this episode. So game 46, this was on Friday, April the 16th. As once again, the Calgary Flames were taking on the Montreal Canadiens, second of back-to-back, and to wrap up their 3-game homestand. This one happened to be a 4 p.m. puck drop at the Bell Center. And then once again, the Calgary Flames did show some heart and outplayed the Montreal Canadiens for the most part in this game, and just like it has been with the season series. There was actually no scoring to report in the first period, but Calgary did outshoot the Montreal Canadiens 13-6 in the first period alone. Second period, the first goal of the game did happen just past the 9.5-minute mark. It was Tyler Toffoli. Who actually got his 20th goal of the season. So Montreal takes a 1-0 lead at that point. Montreal did maintain a 1-0 lead after the second period, but the Calgary Flames did hit a couple posts. That definitely was a theme for this game. The post helped the Montreal Canadiens a few more times in this game. So it was 1-0 Montreal after the second period. Third period, eventually the Calgary Flames were able to get on the board as Elias Lindholm continues his scoring tear, as he's got his 12th of the season at the 6.5-minute mark to make it a 1-1 game at that point. But the Calgary Flames keep pressing, and the Montreal Canadiens actually on their heels a bit. Eventually, it was the Montreal Canadiens who did score a dagger in this one, as it was Tyler Toffoli who scores his 2nd of the game at the 15:45-minute mark, and Montreal now takes a 2-1 lead. And then the Calgary Flames wasn't able to answer the back and lose this one, a tough one, in a 2-1 game, and really put a damper on their slim playoff hopes. Calgary did outshoot Montreal 29-20 overall. Montreal was led by Tyler Toffoli, obviously, with 2 goals, and it was Nick Suzuki who chipped in with 2 assists. So when it comes to the goaltending story of the game, well, it was Jacob Markstrom who made 18 saves for Calgary, while it was Jake Allen who made 28 saves for Montreal, with a strong game and help with the posts. So Calgary went 2-1 on this road trip, but it definitely stings about losing that tough one, especially that one second game against the Montreal Canadiens. So that was game 46. So game 47. This happened on Monday, April the 19th, as the Calgary Flames are back at home at Scotiabank Saddledome to take on the Ottawa Senators. This was the 7 p.m. puck drop. And then the first period here was, what I was about to say before I get to the game itself. Hopefully this would be a sign that the Calgary Flames could maybe buck a trend against the Ottawa Senators. They've had trouble against the Ottawa Senators, and this would be a team to look back on and say, damn, the Calgary Flames, they would have played a little better against Ottawa. Maybe they would have been able to make the playoffs. First period was wide open for both sides, and a couple goals came at the midway point of the first period. First Ottawa strikes, as it was Brady Tkachuk who got his 15th of the season just before the 10-minute mark, and Ottawa takes a 1-0 lead at that point. However, Calgary was able to strike back as Elias Lindholm. Elias Lindholm got his 13th just before the 11.5-minute mark, so we have a 1-1 game, as Elias Lindholm has been on a scoring streak. Then going into the final minute of the first period, it was Brett Ritchie for Calgary and Josh Brown for Ottawa who fought in this one. So we had a 1-1 game after the first period. Second period, the Calgary Flames did outplay the Ottawa Senators in stretches, but with no luck. Actually, the only goal of the second period did not come until the final minute, as it was the other player named Brown, as in Connor Brown, who scores his 15th, and it was a short-handed goal, so Ottawa takes a 2-1 lead at that point in the second period. So Ottawa led 2-1 after the second period. This is starting to feel too familiar for the Calgary Flames. Third period, the tough luck for the Calgary Flames continues, as it was Josh Norris, who scores his 13th on the power play for Ottawa just before the 8-minute mark. So Ottawa now takes a 3-1 lead at that point. However, Calgary was able to get back within one, as Milan Lucic, who actually received a silver stick at this game, just ahead of the opening, first game back after he got his 1,000 game. He actually scores his 8th just before the 11-minute mark to make it now a 3-2 game for Ottawa. With the Calgary Flames keep pressing, looking for the tying goal, it was actually Connor Brown who scores his second of the game just before the 18.5-minute mark. So Ottawa takes a 4-2 lead at that point and continues to give Calgary a hard time with a 4-2 win. And actually, Ottawa only took 4 shots in the third period, but 2 of them were goals. Calgary did actually outshoot Ottawa in this one, 28-20. Ottawa was led by Connor Brown, who had 2 goals, and Josh Norris chipped in with a goal and assist. Those 2 players definitely have had a big games against the Calgary Flames this season. When it comes to the goaltending story of the game, it was Jacob Markstrom, who made 16 saves for Calgary, while it was Matt Murray, who made 26 saves for Ottawa. So that was game 47. Well, game 48 was originally scheduled to be on Tuesday, April 20th, as the Calgary Flames would take on the Ottawa Senators again. Now, it would have been a 7 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome, with all the games being rescheduled and moved around. That game has now been moved till Sunday, May the 9th. So that's it for the game recaps. As I know everything's out of sync, but I was just trying to, keep my notes, keep everything as my upload schedule. I'll put the game tags, in, for the future next 2 episodes on which games were to make up games. But those were the 5 games that the Calgary Flames played for this game recap episode. So how the Calgary Flames have played against everyone else in the North All-Canadian Division. Well, the Calgary Flames, they're still 4-2 against the Vancouver Canucks. They still got 4 more games to go, and now with all the rescheduling that's been going on with the COVID outbreak, especially with the Vancouver Canucks and Calgary Flames will play 4 straight to wrap up this season. So that's when those 4 games will come. So when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers, the Calgary Flames are 3-5-0 against the Edmonton Oilers, so they got still 2 more games to go against the Edmonton Oilers. And then when it comes to the Winnipeg Jets, the Calgary Flames are 3-4-1, and the Flames have 1 more game against the Winnipeg Jets to wrap up the season series. Then when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs, that would be the team that the Calgary Flames will likely play in the first round of the playoffs if they somehow manage to get into the playoffs. Well, they actually wrap up the season series 3-5-1. So the Calgary Flames were under 500 against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Well, this one stings, as the Calgary Flames are 2-5-1 against the Ottawa Senators. The Ottawa Senators is the only team in the North All-Canadian Division that they've had success against the Calgary Flames. So the Flames have 1 more game to go with the Ottawa Senators. And then the last team that we are chasing, the Montreal Canadiens, we are 4-2-0 against the Montreal Canadiens, and we have still 3 more games to go. And we would have to sweep the season series and get some help if the Calgary Flames were to make the playoffs. Because where the Flames stand at this point, as they are 19-23-3 for 41 points, puts them 5th in the North All-Canadian Division, and they're 8 points behind the Montreal Canadiens for that final playoff spot. But the Montreal Canadiens actually still only have 1 game in hand. So Montreal has been able to play catch-up as they got shut down with COVID. So yeah, if we could sweep the Montreal Canadiens, so that would close that gap to 2. But we would need to get some help if the Calgary Flames were still able to get into the playoffs. It's mathematically still possible, but let's get realistic. So now this part of the video, we'll take a look at the stats and standings, shall we? So when it comes to the quick player stats, when it comes to the Calgary Flames, well, Johnny Gaudreau still leads the way with 15 goals. And then Elias Lindholm is second with 13. And then Andrew Mangiapane is third with 12 goals. Matthew Tkachuk has 10 goals, and Sean Monahan has 9 goals around the top 5 of the Calgary Flames. When it comes to assists, well, Elias Lindholm leads with 26 assists. Matthew Tkachuk has 20 for second. Michael Backlund third for 19, and then Johnny Gaudreau is 18 for fourth. Around the top 5 in assists is Sean Monahan with 16. So the leading scorers for the Calgary Flames is Elias Lindholm leads with 39 points. Johnny Gaudreau second with 33. Matthew Tkachuk third for 30. Michael Backlund 27 for fourth. And Sean Monahan is fifth at 25. So when it comes to the goaltending, well, Jacob Markstrom now is the only goalie that's played games other than a brief cameo with Artem Zagadulin. In 33 games, he is 15, 16, and 2 with a .280 goals against average and .902 save percentage with 3 shutouts. Definitely has still not been the same since the incident that he had. I think it was Tanner Pearson that knocked him out for a few games, but I would say that Jacob Markstrom has played a little better recently, but I'm thinking we're in the too little too late territory when it comes to playoffs, but you never know. So when you look around the league, well, the leading point scorer is Connor McDavid. He has 77 points. Wow, 77 points. Then Leon Draisaitl is second, his teammate, with 64 points. And then Patrick Kane is third with 58 points. And then Austin Matthews, Brad Marchand, and Mitch Marner are tied for fourth with 55 points each. So the North All Canadian division definitely still leading the way when it comes to offense. So now when it comes to the goals, Austin Matthews leads in goals with 33. Mikko Rantanen for Colorado is second with 26, and then Connor McDavid for Edmonton has 25 for third. And then tied for fourth, you have Brad Marchand for Boston and Alexander Ovechkin for Washington with 24. So when it comes to assists, well, Connor McDavid actually leads the league in assists with 52. Patrick Kane is second with 43. Leon Draisaitl is third with 42. And then Mitch Marner, 41 assists for fourth. And then Nathan McKinnon for Colorado is tied with Anthony Panarin and former Flame draft pick Adam Fox with 36. So that's the assists leader when it comes to around the league. So now when it comes to, let's take a look at the goalies. When it comes to, let's say save percentage. Let's take a look at save percentage. Well, you have Philip Gustafsson actually has a .946 save percentage. So I think the most stat we should take a look at is wins. So Andrei Vasilevsky for Tampa Bay leads with 27 wins. And then Philip Grubauer for Colorado is second with 25 wins. Then you got Connor Hellebuyck and Marc-Andre Fleury. Connor Hellebuyck for Winnipeg, Marc-Andre Fleury for Vegas. Tied for third, 21 wins. And then Tristan Jarry rounds out the top 5 with 19 wins for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So that's just a quick, look at the stats for the Calgary Flames and the league. So now let's take a look at the standings and maybe mull over some potential playoff matchups. Start with the Scotia North Division. Well, Toronto, after 46 games, they are 28, 13, and 5 for 61 points. Second place is the Winnipeg Jets after 45 games. They're 27, 15, and 3 for 57 points. And then the Edmonton Oilers are third. After 45 games, they're 27, 6, and 2 for 56 points. Then the fourth place at the top of the playoff cutoff line. After 44 games, Montreal is 20, 15, and 9 for 49 points. Then below the playoff cutoff line is Calgary. After 45 games, they're 19, 23, and 3 for 41 points. So that's 8 points with Montreal one game in hand. Then the Vancouver Canucks, well, they're just starting to play catch-up. After 39 games, they're 18, 18, and 3 for 39 points. So they actually have a better points percentage than Calgary. And last place in the Scotia North All Canadian division. After 46 games, Ottawa has 16, 26, and 4 for 36 points. So if the Calgary Flames don't make the playoffs, give me at least a Toronto-Montreal first-round matchup. That would be sweet. And then Winnipeg would host Edmonton. I'm going to say Toronto is likely going to finish first. Edmonton and Winnipeg are likely going to meet each other. And I'm going to say Toronto-Montreal is likely going to be the first round matchup. If we somehow sneak in, we'll take on Toronto. It would be a pretty good matchup and interesting, to see maybe David Riddick in the playoffs. But let's just be realistic here. I would like a Toronto-Montreal first round if Calgary's not in it. So when it comes to the Discover Central Division, well, the three-way race for the divisional race is definitely heating up. As Carolina's first place after 45 games, they're 30-10-5 for 65 points. And then the Florida Panthers are second. After 47 games, they're 30-12-5 for 65 points. Then the Tampa Bay Lightning are third, as Tampa Bay has actually slipped a little. But they're still pretty good shape. They're after 46 games, they're 30-14-2 for 62 points. And then rounding out the top four for the playoff, before the playoff cutoff line, you got the Nashville Predators after 48 games, they're 25-21-2 for 52 points. And now you got the Dallas Stars. They're actually knocking on the door. Below the playoff cut line, after 45 games, they're 19-14-2 for 50 points. I can maybe see the Dallas Stars sneak in. Then the Chicago Blackhawks, after 47 games, they're 22-20-5 for 49 points. I think maybe they could still have a chance. They're only 3 points behind. And get this, actually the Detroit Red Wings are not in last place. They're in 7th place. After 48 games, they're 16-25-7 for 39 points. Well, they're not going to make the playoffs. Well, the Columbus Blue Jackets are in last place. Also going to say they're not going to make the playoffs. After 48 games, they're 15-24-9 for 39 points. So looking at the Discover Central Division, Carolina might be wary of whoever finishes fourth, because they're likely going to be a run, like Nashville or Dallas or even Chicago. Maybe we'll finally have a battle of Florida. A Florida-Tampa Bay first round. That would definitely be a great matchup looking at the division right now. So that is the Discover Central Division. So in the Honda West Division, well, there's still definitely, the top three is definitely clear, and then not sure who's going to finish fourth, but it's definitely some surprises. Well, actually, as of this post, the Vegas Golden Knights have punched their ticket into the playoffs, as they are first in the Honda West Division. After 46 games, they are 33-11-2 for 68 points. Then second place is the Colorado Avalanche. After 43 games, they're 39-4 for 64 points. No surprises that Vegas and Colorado are at the top of this division. But Minnesota, I think we need to say they're for real. They're in third place after 45 games. 29-13-3 for 61 points. And then the fourth place seems to be wide open, and it doesn't seem to be who wants it. As right now is the Arizona Coyotes. They played 47 games. They're 22-5 for 45 points. However, the St. Louis Blues are below the playoff cutoff line, but they have 4 games in hand on Arizona. As St. Louis, after 43 games, they're 19-18-6 for 44 points. And then the San Jose Sharks, I think they may still have a chance. After 46 games, they're 18-23-5 for 41 points. Although their reward's going to be, you're going to have to play Vegas. Maybe another San Jose Vegas first round if they can make it off. And then rounding up the division, the Los Angeles Kings, after 43 games, I think they're likely done. They're 17-20-6 for 40 points. And then the Anaheim Ducks, after 47 games, they're 14-26-7 for 35 points. So looking at this Honda West division, Colorado, Minnesota, that would definitely make a nice, first round matchup for a rivalry. Vegas I think is primed to possibly go all the way. They're either going to play either Arizona, St. Louis, maybe San Jose. But I'm going to say the top three is definitely clear, but there's no real matchup you can say come out of that. It's going to be a new experience either way for that. So the last division is the Mass Mutual East Division, and I think the top four, or maybe their fifth place team, may have a chance. But in the Mass Mutual East Division, the Washington Capitals are leading the way. After 46 games, they're 29-13-4 for 62 points. Second place is the New York Islanders. After 46 games, they're 29-13-4 for 62 points. So I think those two teams definitely are primed to go on a nice run. Then third place is the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are now, after 46 games, they're 14-3 for 61 points. You definitely cannot count out the Pittsburgh Penguins, and who knows, could they be destined to play Washington or the New York Islanders in the playoffs? And then right at the top four is the Boston Bruins, who I still think they have enough to maybe make one more run at it. And after 44 games, they're 26-12-6 for 58 points. And then with just maybe an outside shot, but still very slim, is the New York Rangers. After 46 games, they're 23-7-6 for 52 points. The New York Rangers are making a nice run of it. And then I think the three teams are playing for pride in next season now, as the Philadelphia Flyers, after 45 games, they're 20-18-7 for 47 points. They are 11 points behind the Boston Bruins. But Boston has a game in hand, so I'm going to say forget it at that point. Same with the New Jersey Devils. I think the New Jersey Devils are actually mathematically eliminated. Yeah, they wouldn't be able to catch the Boston Bruins. They're 45 games, they're 25-6 for 34 points, and then same with the Buffalo Sabres, they're mathematically out. After 46 games, they're 12-27-7 for 31 points. So the group of death, definitely we've seen some separation. But I'm going to definitely say the playoff matchups races that are definitely most interesting to watch will be fourth place in the West Division. And I'm going to say fourth place in the Discover Central Division. And the top three when it comes to the Central Division. And between Vegas and Colorado for the first place. And I'm going to say, unless the Flames can make it very interesting, I'm going to say that's it for the North All Canadian Division. We know the four teams that are going to make the playoffs. So before we take a look ahead, let's bring on the Stockton Heat quick hits. So here's that. Well, just like the Calgary Flames, where they have trouble against the Ottawa Senators, well, there must be something in the organization. Because Stockton has had some trouble with Belleville. As Stockton, they've played only 3 games when I captured this episode, and Stockton definitely has slipped. Game 23, going back to Wednesday, April the 14th. This was the game at the Scotiabank Saddledome, 5 p.m. puck drop, as the Stockton Heat were taking on the Belleville Senators, while Matthew Phillips had a goal and assist. Garrick Sparks made 28 saves and 31 shots as the Belleville Senators beat the Stockton Heat 4-2. Game 24, this was on Thursday, April the 15th. Once again, the Stockton Heat were taking on the Belleville Senators at the Scotiabank Saddledome. That was a 5 p.m. puck drop. It was 4-2 again for Belleville. Still don't know how to say this person's name. We drafted him in 2008. Dimitri Zavadorny. I know he's played in the Quebec Major Junior League. And Glenn Godwin each had a goal. Garrett Sparks made 16 saves on 20 shots. And then it was Andrew Shortridge who made 6 saves on 6 shots in relief, because Garrett Sparks got chased out of this game. And then the last game, game 25, once again the Stockton Heat were taking on the Belleville Senators at the Scotiabank Saddledome. 2 p.m. puck drop. Well, Belleville won this one 4-1. And I know Philip Gustafson's now with the Belleville Senators, has the Stockton Heat's number. So Belleville and Ottawa definitely is giving the Flames and the Heat a hard time. It was Gorio Estevan who had a goal, and then Garrett Sparks actually only made 10 saves and 13 shots. The Stockton Heat outshot the Belleville Senators in this one. So that's what I have for the Stockton Heat quick hits, as there is no playoffs in the American Hockey League, but after a good start, as the Stockton Heat had a 8-game winning streak after dropping the first 2 games, the Stockton Heat have been struggling as well. I know they definitely have had a hard time against the Laval Rocket, but they're one of the top teams in the Canadian Division in the American Hockey League. But the Calgary Flames and the Stockton Heat are definitely not big fans of the Ottawa Senators and the Binghamton Senators, respectively. So now let's take a look ahead. This will be the next episode this will actually be a 4-game episode. As with my schedule, there'll be 2 4-game episodes to wrap up the regular season, although everything is still kind of out of sync. But the next 4 games will still go as scheduled. As for the purposes of what I slotted in, Game 49, this will be on Friday, April 23rd, as the Calgary Flames will be taking on the Montreal Canadiens at the Scotiabank Saddledome, 7 p.m. puck drop. That's definitely going to be a huge game. And then Game 50 would be on Saturday, April 24th, as the Calgary Flames will be taking on the Montreal Canadiens again. That'll be a 5 p.m. puck drop. And then game 51, this will definitely tell how slim or maybe a little better our playoff odds are going to be. As on Monday, April 26th, the Calgary Flames will be taking on the Montreal Canadiens yet again. This will be a 4:30 puck drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome. And then game 52 will be on Thursday, April the 29th, as the Calgary Flames will be taking on the Edmonton Oilers up in Edmonton at Rogers Place. So that will be the next episode for episode 10. Definitely will determine where the Flames will be at in the playoff race. I'm going to have to say the Calgary Flames need to win the next 3 games to close the gap on the Montreal Canadiens. If they drop any of these games, then any hope we have is long gone. But then for episode 11, this is where things definitely get a little interesting, as I'll call that games 53 to 56. But there'll be makeup games in there. So after when I do the next episode, which will be the end of April, then the last episode won't be until May 20th when it comes out, because the North Division season is going to continue on at least till May 19th, while the West Division, because the Colorado Avalanche actually recently just got out of COVID, they extended that regular season till May the 13th, so maybe the playoffs will still start a little later. But episode 11, game 53, this will be on Saturday, May the 1st, as the Calgary Flames will take on the Edmonton Oilers for a second back-to-back. That'll be an 8 p.m. puck drop at Rogers Place. Then game 54, this was still originally scheduled. It will be on Wednesday, May the 5th, as the Calgary Flames will play their last game against the Winnipeg Jets. This will be in Calgary for a 7:30 puck drop. And then this will be the game 48 makeup. The Calgary Flames will take on the Ottawa Senators on Sunday, May the 9th, as that game will be in Calgary. Scotiabank Saddledome for a 6 p.m. puck drop, and that game is rescheduled from Tuesday, April the 20th. And then game 43, the makeup game, will be on Thursday, May the 13th, as the Calgary Flames will be taking on the Vancouver Canucks, and this will be at the Scotiabank Saddledome. 7 p.m. puck drop, and it got rescheduled twice. First originally from Saturday, April the 10th, so originally that game would have started off this episode. And then it got rescheduled again after Monday, May the 3rd, as the Vancouver Canucks weren't quite ready to get back from COVID. And then the game 38 makeup, which I'll sneak in. This will be on Saturday, May the 15th, as the Calgary Flames will take on the Vancouver Canucks in Vancouver. That'll be at 8 p.m. puck drop. That game was rescheduled from the Wednesday, March 31st that started off the madness of teams' schedules being sort of shuffled around. And then it got rescheduled to Wednesday, May the 21st, that now has been rescheduled to Saturday, May the 15th. And then game 55, which will now be the second last game of the regular season. This will be on Tuesday, May the 18th, as the Calgary Flames will be taking on the Vancouver Canucks in Vancouver. Rogers Place still TBD for a puck drop. That game was rescheduled from Saturday, May the 8th and Saturday, May the 15th. And then game 56, the last game of the regular season, will be on Wednesday, May the 19th, as the Vancouver Canucks will take on the Calgary Flames at home. Scotiabank Saddledome, TBD for puck drop. That game was originally rescheduled from Thursday, April the 8th, and Sunday, May the 16th. So there'll be some makeup games to make up in the last episode. So that's where kind of like my games are kind of out of sync. But I'm just trying to keep everything as per my upload schedule. I know the Hitman, my Calgary Hitman in 6, is definitely out of sync. But either way, there's still one more episode to go for that. And then the WHL, there is going to be no playoffs or Memorial Cup in the Western Hockey League, but there will still be playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs for the National Hockey League. We'll really know in the next episode if we can have some faint hope, or really can say kiss the playoffs goodbye and still be realistic that there's likely not going to be any playoffs, but you still never know. The math still works. Who knows, if we can sweep the Montreal Canadiens and win that game against the Edmonton Oilers, there could be some false hope. But I'm not falling for it. So anyway, as I say, if you want to follow along this Calgary sports fan's journey, home of the Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders, I mostly do talk Calgary sports. On my YouTube channel, where I recap games and stories, and there's definitely been a lot of stories about games being rescheduled around, or most recently with the NHL trade deadline. But I also do some other non-sports content, like personal blogs, attempt to comedy, and by the looks of it, which is unlikely we're going to make the playoffs, so I'll have more time to make those other videos, especially when we're waiting for the CFL season, which they announced they're still going to plan to play, but the season will be pushed back a couple months, so I'll have some more time to make those other videos in between off-season news. And I also do share my experiences say I'm on the road or at a sporting event, so if that all sounds like it'd be interesting to watch, to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, you know what you do, just make sure you like, subscribe. I also have my other social media links down in the description below, and I'm also planning on doing some more on-the-go vlogging to experiment, and I plan to maybe do some of that throughout the summer as well. So I just want to say, go Flames go, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.